All right, everyone get ready, because today we are going deep on BRICS.
BRICS.
Yeah, BRICS. I mean, it's been all over the news lately, right?
It has been. It's been a hot topic.
So we figured, our listeners are probably hearing about it, maybe even a little confused about what it all means.
Definitely.
So we're going to break it all down for you today. We've got, let's see, Wikipedia, Britannica.
We've got a NASDAQ article.
Ooh, a NASDAQ article. Very nice.
Yeah.
So by the end of this, you'll be like the BRICS expert at the water cooler. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
All right. So where do we even start with something like this?
Well, I think it's helpful to understand that BRICS wasn't always this big geopolitical force that we see today.
Okay.
It really started as like an economic concept.
Really?
Back in 2001. Yeah, a Goldman Sachs economist, actually.
Oh, Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, predicted that Brazil, Russia, India, and China, BRIC at the time, would dominate the world economy by 2050.
Dominate the world economy. I mean, that's a pretty bold prediction.
It is a bold prediction.
So when did it become BRICS? Was South Africa always in the picture?
No, so South Africa joined a bit later in 2010.
2010, okay.
And that's really when things started to shift, I'd say, because adding South Africa kind of transformed BRICS from just like an economic term
Oh, I see.
into something more political and strategic, I would say.
Okay, so it's like not just about the money anymore. It's like about global influence.
Yeah.
About like challenging the current world order, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay, this is getting interesting.
Yeah, and that shift that you just described becomes even more apparent when you look at the recent expansion of BRICS.
Oh yeah, they've added some new countries, haven't they?
They have. In 2024, they added Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates.
Wow. And there was talk about other countries joining, right?
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is still considering.
But our sources mentioned Argentina. They were going to join, but then
They initially accepted, but then they pulled out.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Apparently, a new president with different priorities came into power.
Ah, so internal politics playing a role.
Exactly.
So it just goes to show joining BRICS is not like a simple decision.
No, not at all.
Lots of factors at play. Okay, so we've got the who of BRICS, right? But when did this actually become like an organization? When was that first meeting?
Okay, so picture this. Yekaterinburg, Russia, 2009.
Yekaterinburg. Sounds cold.
It was the first BRICS summit, so just the 4 countries at that time.
No South Africa yet.
Not yet, no. And the focus was really on the global economic recovery.
It was 2009, right? So just after the financial crisis?
Right after, yeah, they were talking about reforming financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank.
Okay, so kind of changing the way things work, not just going along with it.
Exactly. And giving developing nations a bigger voice on the world stage.
So they were aiming to shake things up from the very beginning.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And get this, they actually called for a new global reserve currency.
Whoa, hold on. A new reserve currency. Are we talking like replacing the US dollar?
They wanted to challenge the dollar's dominance.
That's a pretty bold move. Did they actually try to create one back then?
Well, a concrete alternative didn't actually materialize at that time.
Okay.
But the fact that they called for it showed their motivation.
I see.
They wanted to reduce dependence on the US dollar and the whole Western-dominated financial system.
Wow. So it's like, we're not just going to sit at your table. We're going to build our own table.
That's a great way to put it.
But it can't just be talk, right? What concrete actions have they taken to actually achieve these goals?
Oh, they've been busy.
Okay, give me the highlights.
So in 2014, they launched the New Development Bank.
The New Development Bank.
Often called the BRICS Bank. It's headquartered in Shanghai.
Fancy.
And it basically provides funding for infrastructure and development projects in emerging economies. So think of it as an alternative to the World Bank, but without the strings that are often attached to traditional Western loans.
Oh, interesting. So they're actually putting their money where their mouth is, huh?
Literally.
What else?
Well, in 2015, they created the Contingency Reserve Arrangement.
Oh, what?
The Contingency Reserve Arrangement, or CRA.
CRA, okay.
It's essentially a safety net for BRICS members facing, financial crises.
Like a backup plan.
Exactly. And it allows them to support each other without having to turn to the IMF.
Interesting. So they're really trying to create their own parallel system.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, now, I remember reading something about a common BRICS currency. Is that still just like an idea, or is there something actually happening there?
Now that's where things get really interesting.
I knew it. This is where we dive even deeper. Tell me more.
Well, let's hold that thought for just a moment. We'll unpack this whole currency debate and explore this R5 basket idea and this intriguing possibility of a gold-backed system. Stay tuned.
Gold, this just keeps getting better and better. All right, everyone, stick around. We'll be right back after a quick break.
We'll be back.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive into this whole BRICS currency situation.
Yes, it's fascinating stuff.
Before the break, you mentioned this R5 basket and a gold-backed system. It sounds like, I don't know, like a financial thriller or something.
It really does feel like we're on the edge of a major shift in global finance.
Yeah.
So this idea of an R5 currency basket,
R5, what is that?
it would combine the renminbi, ruble, rupee, real, and rand.
All the R's.
All the R's. It would essentially create a currency that reflects the combined economic power of these nations.
So instead of just using US dollars for, like, international trade,
Right.
they could use this R5 as an alternative.
Exactly.
Would that actually work? I mean, could that really challenge the dollar?
It would certainly give them more independence and leverage in the global market. But then there's this even more radical concept, and that's a BRICS currency backed by gold.
Gold, like actual gold.
Actual gold, yes.
Is that even realistic in, like, today's world?
Well, it might sound a bit like a throwback, but gold is seen as a safe haven asset, you know?
Yeah.
It's a store of value that's not as susceptible to fluctuations and perceived manipulation of the US dollar.
So it's like a safety net, you're saying?
Exactly.
If the dollar were to, have problems. But wouldn't that require, like, a ton of gold?
It would require a significant amount of gold.
Do they even have enough?
Well, our NASDAQ article suggests that the original BRICS nations, plus Egypt, hold over 20% of global central bank gold reserves.
Wow, that's a lot. But how would that even work? Would they, like, ship gold bars around the world every time they make a transaction?
No, not quite. Experts like Jim Rickards and Andy Schechtman, they suggest that a modern gold-backed system wouldn't involve physically moving gold.
Okay.
It would be more like a digital ledger that keeps track of each nation's gold reserves.
So like a digital gold standard.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not as old-fashioned as I initially thought. But even with a digital system, isn't it still risky to tie a currency's value to gold? Because gold prices go up and down, right?
There are definitely risks and complexities involved, but proponents of the system, they argue that it would actually provide more stability and transparency compared to, say, a fiat currency like the US dollar, which is, subject to those inflationary pressures.
That's interesting. It sounds, I don't know, kind of like a fascinating experiment.
It is.
But also incredibly complicated.
Speaking of complicated, there's this whole Project Enbridge thing.
Yes.
What is that about?
So Project Enbridge is really interesting because it's a platform that could facilitate the use of a BRICS unit.
BRICS unit, okay.
For cross-border transactions. And this unit could be a basket of currencies, potentially backed by gold.
So it's like a real-world testing ground for this new financial system they're envisioning.
Exactly. And the really exciting part is that it's already reached what they call the minimal viable product stage.
Minimal viable product, okay.
Which means it can handle real transactions.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's still under development, but it's a sign that they're moving beyond just talking about this and actually taking steps.
This is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think, we started by talking about this acronym, BRICS.
Right.
And now we're talking about, like, gold-backed currencies and cutting-edge platforms.
It's amazing.
It's clear they have big ambitions.
They do?
But can they really pull this off? What are the chances of them actually succeeding in creating this new world order that they're talking about?
That is the million-dollar question. It's really hard to say for sure. There are a lot of hurdles.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a minute.
Okay.
What are the biggest challenges they're facing in trying to achieve this goal?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is internal cohesion.
Internal cohesion, okay.
So remember, BRICS is a very diverse group of nations.
But they're not all, like, best friends, are they?
No, they have different political systems, economic models, even historical baggage.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So getting them all on the same page and working together seamlessly, that's a challenge.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, too many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly. For example, think about the relationship between India and China. They're both BRICS members, but they also have this long-standing border dispute.
Right, and they're kind of competing for influence in Asia.
Exactly.
So even though they share this goal of, challenging the West, their own regional rivalries can get in the way.
Unfortunately. Yes.
That's going to be tough.
It is. And it's not just India and China, right? There are differences in priorities and perspectives among all the BRICS nations.
Right. Some are more focused on the economics. Some are more focused on, like, geopolitics.
Exactly.
It must be like trying to herd cats, like you said.
It really is.
But it's not just internal challenges, right? They're also up against the very system they're trying to challenge.
Absolutely.
I mean, the U.S. and the West, they're not just going to sit back and watch their dominance disappear, right?
No, they're not.
So how are they responding to the rise of BRICS?
Well, there's a lot of skepticism, definitely some concern, and even attempts to downplay BRICS' significance.
Oh, really?
Some Western analysts, they kind of dismiss it as a talking shop.
A talking shop.
Yeah, they argue that they lack, the cohesion and shared values to really challenge the existing order.
So they're saying BRICS is all bark and no bite.
That's one way to put it.
But there must be some concern, right?
Oh, definitely. Especially about the geopolitical implications of this expansion.
Yeah, with Iran joining and maybe Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. Some in the West see this as a move towards a more anti-Western bloc.
Especially with Russia being a key member.
Right.
And the whole situation in Ukraine.
Yeah, that definitely adds to the tension.
So it's not just talk. There's a real geopolitical dimension to this.
Absolutely. And beyond just the rhetoric, there are also practical challenges.
Okay, like what?
To their de-dollarization ambitions.
De-dollarization, right?
Because a lot of these economies are still heavily reliant on the US dollar system.
Makes sense. That's how the world works right now.
Right. So shifting away from that system carries risks and costs.
Yeah, it's like trying to, change the engine of a car while it's still running.
A perfect analogy.
Not impossible, but definitely risky. And then there's the whole challenge of actually establishing a new currency system.
Right. That's huge.
I mean, it's one thing to talk about it, but to actually create a viable alternative to the dollar.
It's a massive undertaking.
It's not just about printing banknotes, right? It's about trust, infrastructure.
Exactly. You need a whole global financial ecosystem that's willing to embrace this new system.
Yeah, you need people to actually believe in it.
Yes, you need robust financial infrastructure, clear rules and regulations.
Right.
And most importantly, you need confidence from global markets. And that takes time.
So even if they manage to overcome these internal challenges and deal with the pushback from the West, there's still this massive hurdle of actually building a credible alternative.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a really tough challenge.
It is. But it's important to remember that BRICS is playing a long game.
A long game, okay.
They're not expecting to change the world overnight. They're challenging fundamental assumptions about global power and finance.
Right.
And those kinds of shifts take time.
So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
But it's not just about economics and geopolitics, is it? What about the rest of the world? How do they see BRICS?
That's a crucial question. Our sources highlight a Gallup poll from late 2023 that offers some interesting insights into global perceptions of BRICS.
Ooh, polls. I love polls. What does it say?
Well, there's a clear divide between Western and non-Western perspectives.
Oh, that's not surprising.
No, it's not. Western countries tend to view BRICS more negatively.
Right.
They're concerned about the challenge to the established order.
Right. They see it as a threat.
Exactly. But in other parts of the world, especially in what they call the Global South,
The Global South, okay.
there's more receptiveness to BRICS' message.
They're more open to it.
They are. The poll mentions that Russia, Iran, and Nigeria are among the most positive.
That makes sense.
And even in India, which is a BRICS member,
Right.
there are mixed views.
Oh, interesting.
So even within the bloc, there are varying levels of support.
It's a reminder that BRICS isn't just this, monolithic thing.
Right.
It's a group of very different countries.
Exactly, with their own complexities and internal dynamics.
So where does that leave us? I mean, we've talked about their origins, their expansion, the challenges, the global perceptions.
It's a complex picture.
It is. They're clearly a force to be reckoned with, but it's hard to say what will happen.
The BRICS story is still unfolding.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic process. It'll be fascinating to watch how it all plays out.
It's like a geopolitical thriller with a to be continued at the end.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there for today.
Okay.
But we've learned so much about BRICS, and I think our listeners have too.
I hope so.
So, before we go, any final thoughts?
Well, I think it's important to remember that BRICS is about much more than just economics or politics.
Okay.
It's about a fundamental shift in global power dynamics. It's a move toward a world where power is more dispersed, where new voices are being heard.
A multipolar world, like you were saying earlier.
Exactly. And the implications of this shift are huge.
Yeah.
It affects how international relations are conducted, how global finance works, how decisions are made that affect all of us.
It's about shaping the future of the world.
It really is.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
And with that in mind, I definitely encourage our listeners to go and learn more about this.
Yes.
We'll be sure to include links to the sources we talked about in the show notes.
Great.
So you can check out Wikipedia, Britannica, and that NASDAQ article.
Absolutely.
And, keep learning.
Keep learning.
Because this is a story that's just getting started.
It is.
And we'll be here to cover it every step of the way. But for now, it's time to come up from our deep dive.
Back to the surface.
Back to the surface. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone deep on BRICS, their origins, their ambitions, the challenges they're up against. But there's this one big question that's still kind of hanging out there.
The question of whether they can actually pull it off, right?
Yeah, exactly. Will BRICS really reshape the global landscape? Will we see this multipolar world they talk about? Will the US dollar's dominance actually fade? I mean, it's kind of a cliffhanger.
It is. And it's impossible to predict the future with 100% certainty, especially when it comes to geopolitics and global finance.
Right. Things change so quickly.
They do. But I think we can look at some of the key factors that will likely determine BRICS' trajectory, in the years to come.
Okay, so let's put on our analyst hats here. What are the make or break elements for BRICS?
Well, one of the most crucial factors is going to be their ability to overcome those internal divisions we talked about earlier.
Right, all those different countries with different priorities.
Exactly. Can they bridge those gaps? Can they find common ground when it comes to economic policy, regional security, global governance? Can they present a united front to the world?
It's that whole herding cats problem again.
Exactly. If they're constantly bogged down by internal disputes and, competing agendas, it's going to be really hard for them to project a cohesive vision.
And to exert real influence on the world stage.
Right. So internal unity, I would say. That's key.
Okay, so internal unity. What else?
Another crucial element is their ability to actually deliver tangible benefits to their members.
So it's not enough to just talk about it.
No, they have to walk the walk.
They need to show results.
Exactly. Can they make the new development bank a real alternative to the World Bank?
Yeah.
Can they create a viable alternative currency system that actually benefits their economies? They have to demonstrate that being a member of BRICS actually translates into, economic advantages, development opportunities.
And real global clout.
Exactly. If they fail to deliver on those fronts, their appeal is going to diminish.
Makes sense. So results matter.
We do, a lot.
Okay, what else is on your things to watch list?
I think the reaction of the West is also going to be critical.
Yeah, the US and Europe, how they respond to this whole BRICS thing.
Exactly. Will they try to contain BRICS? Or will they find ways to engage and cooperate? Will we see a more confrontational approach or, some possibility of coexistence?
It's like that classic power struggle, right?
Yeah.
The up-and-comers versus the established powers.
It is. And how that dynamic plays out, it's going to have a huge impact on the global landscape.
Absolutely. So the relationship between BRICS and the West, that's a big wild card.
It is a wild card. And then, of course, there's the global perception of BRICS.
Right, how the rest of the world sees them.
Can they bring more countries into their fold? Can they build a broader coalition of nations that are also looking for a more equitable, a more multipolar world order?
It's about winning hearts and minds on a global scale.
Exactly. They have to demonstrate their success. They have to communicate their message effectively. They have to address concerns.
Build trust.
Build trust, build credibility. It's a lot.
It sounds like it. So internal unity, tangible results, a strategic approach to the West, and a compelling global narrative.
That's a good summary.
BRICS has a lot on their plate.
They do, but the stakes are high. The success or failure of BRICS, it's going to have a profound impact on, the future of global power, global finance, global governance. It's a story that's just beginning, and it's definitely one we're going to keep following closely here at the Deep Dive.
Well said. Well, it looks like we've reached the surface of our BRICS exploration.
Back to the surface.
Back to the surface we go. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
We encourage you to keep exploring this fascinating and evolving story. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the sources we talked about: Wikipedia, Britannica, and that NASDAQ article. And until next time, keep diving deeper.